Welcome back to Epic Exchanges. I am Kelly Snider, your host, and I am really excited because we are starting a series that will be 4 or 5 people over the next several weeks that are all authors in our next book. And I will get more on that later, but first I want to welcome Robyn, one of our fabulous authors and someone I've known for quite a while. And I'm super excited to have you here, Robyn. Why don't you first introduce yourself to the audience?
Thanks for having me, Kelly. My name is Robyn Tidrick. I am the proud mother of 4 adult children that live in 3 countries. And currently, my husband and I have retired and chased one of them all the way to Spain. So we just bought a house in Spain and are beginning a very different chapter of our life the last few months.
So I know we're going to hear more of that. So I just want to tell our audience a little bit about the book. So 3 years ago, or 3.5 years ago, we published The Gift in Your Story, which is right here over my shoulder. And it was a collection, or it is a collection of 11 women's stories of overcoming difficult times. Well, we finally done a follow-up, and September 9th is when the Strength to Shift will be released. You can, on social media, you can join our live launch event on September 9th and just go to our website to find that. And we're going to have 4 or 5 of the authors over the next few weeks sharing a little bit about their stories and their experience participating in the book. In case that might be something that any of our listeners, any of you are interested in doing in the future, it's really important for us to find our stories, heal them, and then share them in a way that can be inspiring and empowering for others. And this is one of the ways that we help you and people like Robyn and any of you watching and listening do the same thing. So enough said about the upcoming book. Robyn, why don't you share your story with us?
Okay, well, my story that I am sharing in the book is really about learning to find joy in the middle or in the midst of really tough circumstances. For me personally, back in 1997, on our 9th anniversary exactly, my husband was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And our kids at the time, we only had 3 of our 4 at the time. They were 11, 7, and 11 months old when he was diagnosed, and he got very sick very quickly. Was a really scary time for me. I immediately was thrown into the fear of what it would be like to be a young widow raising 3 kids by myself and how my life would look from that point forward. But I would have to say that that fear was quickly replaced with a different fear of how to live with chronic illness long term. I was just not educated enough to know that MS wasn't going to kill my husband super fast. In fact, it was going to kill him very slow. And so we would have to learn how to live with being sick for the rest of however many years he had left. And I think that initially, and what has traveled through the years of being sick is just a very real disappointment that life isn't the way I thought it was going to be. You know, we got married young, we had kids, we started, our family and started in that whole down that road of what it is to be parents, raising kids and organizing your life and working at your job. And all of a sudden this unexpected thing comes into your life, and you realize that your life is going to look nothing like you planned it to look or nothing like you expected to look. And I just wasn't prepared for how overwhelming it would be to be in grief for decades. I think that I talked to many people over the years and had a lot of friends who have gone through grief, losing a spouse or losing a child. And that grief is very big, but it is also very different because it is something that you experience at one specific point in time, and you then begin the healing process, however long that takes. This kind of grief with having chronic illness just keeps coming in waves, and you keep getting thrown back into the cycle of grief over and over again, and you just feel exhausted. A lot of times we talk about it feeling like running a marathon instead of a jog around the block, but it's like a marathon that you don't know how long it is. Like it's twice or 3 times the miles and you can't see the finish line. And so I think I was just really unprepared for how devastating the grief would feel over that many years. And really my story that I'm sharing in this book is the things that I've learned over the years of experiencing grief, that kind of help point you back to hope again. Whenever I think we're dealing with really hard circumstances in life, it's very difficult to hang on to hope. You get, kind of spun into despair or feeling sorry for yourself really easily. And so, as the disease has progressed we've spent 27 of our 35 years together dealing with this illness, and how to manage it in a way that we can somehow find joy raising our family, and just joy in our marriage again. And Eric, when we were young, he was really athletic, he was strong, he was full of energy, and this disease just took that all away from him bit by bit. And one day he couldn't ski anymore, and one day he realized he can't ride his bike anymore, and one day he realized he can't even walk without a walker, and now this healthy, strong guy has to use a rolling walker like an old man, and double vision, and his inability to concentrate on the road made it so he can't drive anymore. So now I'm his full-time driver and caregiver, and now he's in a wheelchair all the time. So I think, one of those, like I said, dealing with the disappointment over such a long period of time, I found myself at one point feeling just really sorry for myself, really angry at God, angry at the world, angry at him sometimes, even though it's not his fault he has a disease. You just get angry that your husband can't get off the couch and take out the garbage because he literally can't do it. And so it was just a huge challenge and a huge stress over such a long period of time. And it just really took a huge toll on our marriage. And I think that, some of the things I share in the book, I learned some lessons during that period of time that I share with my audience to hopefully help other people, even if you're not a caregiver, even if you're not in the same circumstances I'm in. You may find yourself at some point in time really in circumstances that are painful, and you feel like you're suffering, and life isn't the way you thought it should be. And I think that it's important that we can know that other people are going through that same feeling, even if it's a different circumstance. And so that's kind of, I don't know how much more to share without giving up, without spoiling the end of the story.
Totally. I totally appreciate that. And I think that what comes up for me the most in all of this is the fact that there is no end point as yet, and it has been so many years. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you for putting the entire story in the book, even though there isn't an end point yet. But there are things that you've learned and that you have gained through the 20 plus years of living with MS in your family and living with the way that it is slowly stripping away what you thought life was supposed to be like. So the first question I want to ask is, you mentioned like other people needing to know or to connect with the fact that often we don't feel like life is the way we thought it was supposed to be. So I'd love to know if you have one tip, without giving away what you share in the book, but one tip for people who feel that, who might be going through something and saying, this isn't what I signed up for. This isn't what I expected. This isn't what I envisioned, pictured, hoped for, dreamed for.
Yes. I think that I have 5 in the book, so I'll give you one freebie, and then if you read the book, you'll get the other 4. But the one main one that is really easy, and it doesn't take any homework, and it doesn't take reading a huge big book to do, is learning how to be thankful every single day. It's a practice, and I don't do it. I am not successful at doing it all the time. I just recently had a couple of really bad days where I was really feeling sorry for myself. But the one thing that can turn around a bad day is really sitting down at the end of the day or the beginning of the day. I like to do it before I go to bed at night and write down what I'm thankful for, because even in the most horrible, terrible day, there is something to be thankful for. And it really can change your perspective and help you feel hopeful again. It can be something as simple as your puppy curling up in your lap and just snuggling you when you're crying. It can be something as simple as looking out the window and seeing the most beautiful sunset or pink clouds that, just make you smile. It can be a phone call from a friend. It can be remembering that you have that friend and thinking about the times that your friend has been there for you or whatever it is. But thankfulness truly changes your perspective, even on a terrible, terrible day.
That reminds me of actually when I think I might have shared it on the podcast, but when my dad was diagnosed with lung cancer and it was untreatable, around that same time, I'd read a book that talked about practicing gratitude. And one of the tips in the book was to find a gratitude buddy. And at the end of every day, text 3 things that you were thankful for to that person. And then they would text theirs. And I actually had a friend who was like, hey, I'm in for that, when I was sharing it somewhere on social media or in a conversation. And it was one of the things that I think really got me through that time when he was going downhill and ending up in hospice and then ultimately passing away, because I had that reminder at the end of every day that, yeah, even if it was the 50th time that I said, I'm thankful for a beautiful sunset or the sunrise this morning, or yeah, my dog coming and being concerned when I was upset, or like whatever it was, it doesn't matter how often it was repeated. It was a reminder that there are still good things. There are still
Yes.
things that we can be thankful for. So
Yes.
I love
Yes.
that tip. And it's a really good reminder for me, even when things are going okay, to practice gratitude, to practice.
Yeah. To be thankful on a good day as much as on a bad day. Yeah. Absolutely.
Exactly. So
Exactly.
why was it important for you to share your story? And in particular, why did you decide to write it in a book with a bunch of other people sharing their stories?
Really excited to be offered to do that. I think for years I've been encouraged by people who know me to share one or more of my stories of some of the things that we've been through in our family, and always wanted to be an author, just never knew how to do it. And so being invited to do this process has been a really exciting experience for me, kind of a dream come true. Um, but I think I would have been hesitant without your guidance to do it in this way, because I have felt like I'm in the middle of a story. I can't tell you the beginning, middle, and end on how to deal with the grief of being a caregiver for somebody that you love, because I'm not at the end. I'm still in the middle, and I still have days that I'm horribly messed up and I'm not doing it well. And I feel a mess and I feel in despair and I'm not thankful. And it feels really strange, uncomfortable or unnatural to share. Like, we like to share a story with somebody, like if they say, I had my kid was really struggling with a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and and you said, oh yeah, I remember when we did that at that point in life, and you can kind of tell the beginning, middle, and end of a story to give someone advice. And so I think when we give people advice, it's like usually coming from after the fact. In hindsight, we give advice. And we, not that what I'm writing is necessarily advice, it's more just sharing an experience so that other people don't feel alone. I think that has been the joy for me, and I've done some public speaking about my story. And when I share with people what I'm going through in an honest and vulnerable way, it is so meaningful to other people to realize that others are suffering too, that others are in the middle also, and that I'm not alone in this, or I'm not crazy. All the things that we think about, all the doubts that we think about ourselves. And so that's where I found the encouragement from you in this process of sharing story in our lives with others, how it can be impactful and meaningful, even in the middle. And we don't have to have the package with a bow all pretty at the end. Like, we can still share good things, hard things, bad things, experience with each other to make each other feel seen and feel like there's someone out there that has empathy and understanding for what I'm going through.
Well, and isn't that really part of the human experience? Because
Yeah.
we have the opportunity while we are alive here on this earth and in communication and contact in relationship with other people to share our experience. when
Yeah.
we're gone, we no longer have that opportunity. And that's really the ultimate like ending on earth, right?
Hmm.
But then the opportunity has passed us by. So
Right.
I applaud you for being able to find the positives in the middle of the difficult, because I do think that's indicative of the entire human experience.
I do too. And I think it's been really healing for me to write some of this down, because when you go through something over such a long period of time, you kind of forget all the things that you've done. Like, it's really easy to just be discouraged in the middle of the day to day in our lives. And, I think about all of us can experience that, where today you're just struggling and feeling like you're kind of walking through the mud. But when you look back at how far you've come, when you take the time to really reflect on what you have overcome, you're still here. You didn't give up. You are still moving forward. I think it's just really healing to take the time to really track, what you've actually accomplished, and be grateful that you've accomplished as much as you have. And I think when I tell my story to new people, I'm meeting new people in my new country, in my new town, and my new little church, and I'm talking with people, and we're sharing our life stories, and people sometimes are in awe. They're just, their jaw dropped at some of the things that we've overcome to be where we are. And I think, wow, yeah, it is pretty cool, isn't it? Like, I just remind we're not used to being proud of ourselves. I think it's, we're used to being very humble, or trying to not be like, didn't I do that great thing? And when you hear somebody else telling you, like, you've shared it, and you're like, wow, I did do something pretty amazing, and feel good. And in that, it gives you the strength to keep going to do the next thing. It's like, I've overcome these 10 things. Let's go for one more, and keep going forward.
Right. So as part of this process of being an author with 9 other people, and ultimately publishing your story in a book, what's been the best part of the process of working with these 9 other people and to share your story?
I think it's so fascinating for me to come together when we have, our Zoom calls, as a group of authors, to be in a book that is, these 10 women are not all from the same life circumstances. Like, we are not all from the same, like, maybe outside it would be very difficult for all 10 of us to be friends, because we are in very different life circumstances, and so different lifestyles, different life circumstances, geographically in different places. And so to take 10 women together and say that we have this common theme, that we have each endured something difficult. I think, just kind of a side note, I think one of the hardest things for me when I share a story with someone is they'll say, "Oh, I felt that way too, but my thing isn't as hard as yours. Like, my story isn't as hard as your story." But you felt that same feeling. If you have felt disappointed, if you have felt like you're suffering, if you have felt sad, then your story is like my story. And just because it's, maybe the circumstances don't seem as dire or difficult, we have that commonality. And so I think for me, meeting together with these other 9 women, the 10 of us, well, 11 with you. So we all come from very different backgrounds in our lives. And to be able to create a friendship with people who are very different than yourself, and to come together and be able to collaborate on something that is possible to reach so many different types of people, is really exciting. And I think it's something we really need right now. I feel like our world is so divided, and we're so offended by each other, and you get on social media, and that person has this political view or that political view, or this lifestyle or that lifestyle, and we're so offended by each other that we forget about the things that are common to us all in the human experience, the experience of just living life, and hurting and needing hope in the middle of hurt. And so I think it's really fun to be a part of something really different than I ever expected to be part of. So
I love that. And so just for because it's not all roses, right? Being part of this was the scariest part of this whole process. And maybe it's still coming because we haven't released the book yet. So
yeah,
what is the part that kind of has you nervous, afraid?
I I think nobody likes to be criticized. Criticism is always hard. And I think we've all experienced that since the age of social media. You put something out there and it's criticized by someone, whether you know them or you don't know them. And so, yeah, I think it's a little scary feeling like this would be the first time my story would be shared with absolutely complete strangers, and that there could be, criticism. And there probably will be for some of us, and some of it at some point, and learning to say that's okay. I think that might be the scariest part for me, is just wondering how everything will be received, and how you would handle if you received something really negative feedback or something. But I guess for me too, I just say, if this can help one person, if it can help one other person in my circumstance or something similar to mine feel not feel alone in the world, then it's worth it, even if it's a little scary and painful to be criticized. So
Totally. I am with you on that. Well, thank you for sharing your story here on the podcast and being willing to come here and talk about your experience. And thank you so much for being a part of the book. I can't wait till it's released and people can read all of the stories and be encouraged and inspired and feel empowered and not so alone.
Agreed. I'm excited to be a part of it. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you for jumping in and doing it. And thank you again for being here.
Thanks.